Hey guys, on today's episode we were talking about a tuxedo dress shirt. I apologize, the focus here is going a little crazy. There, that's a little better. Okay, so obviously we're looking at a very basic, at first glance anyway, white dress shirt. So I had this built very recently for a black tie gala that I went to. We were auctioning off one of our signature line suits, and so I of course had to look the part and use it as a reason to get a whole new kit, which I'll be showing you in a couple subsequent episodes here. We'll go over the tuxedo shortly. But first things first, let's start with the dress shirt. Now with the tuxedo, aka dinner jacket, aka kind of black tie affair, menswear, you have pretty much three different options for your shirt. The first one, you probably have that kind of stereotype in mind where it's got the pleated front here. It's usually a half-inch pleat, and it's got that kind of very frilly kind of look to it. A lot going on. It's a very traditional look, and it's still appropriate, although today you don't see it too often, and especially among us younger guys, you don't see it that often at all. So that leaves two other options. One is what's called a Marcella dress shirt. And I don't have one. Someday I'll make one so I can show you. But a Marcella dress shirt is pretty much a really stiff front section on the dress shirt that, especially when you starch it, it is kind of rigid and perfectly, well, it's obviously in a white fabric, but it's just a very rigid, perfect look. And I say that because you're bound to not have any wrinkles. It's that stiff. And that's kind of what you're going for in a very formal dress wear. You want a very flat front, obviously. Again, that shirt, not too popular, just like the pleated dress shirt. It's still out there, and it's still a very good option. It's just something that not a lot of us will see because it is only going to be your black tie dress shirt. It's sometimes kind of a panel that's only in the front section. That's that one fabric that's very stiff and rigid looking, and then the rest of the shirt is much more like a typical dress shirt. So it's not something that you're going to wear to the office or kind of find multiple uses for. That leaves the third option, which is kind of a textured dress shirt. Kind of a catch-all term, I admit, but I'll show you on this one. I'll see if I can get some good lighting here. You know, this has an interesting, come on, focus. An interesting, there we go, kind of texture to it. And when we say a textured shirt fabric, it can really be a whole bunch of different things. It could be kind of like a diamond weave. It could be more geometrical. It can do all kinds of different things. The point is, it just needs to be something more interesting than a very bland white dress shirt. And from a distance, of course, it's going to look white. But the intention being, obviously, when you get closer, and obviously when you have the layered of your tuxedo jacket on, you start to kind of tell a story and show something much more interesting than just a basic white texture. So this is something I went for. I thought it was kind of conservative, but also unique enough that if I wear this in semi-formal / semi-casual occasions, it'll look just fine. So that's kind of a rundown of the three different shirt fabrics that you have to choose from, aka styles. But the other thing you're probably noticing, and I'll address it now, I don't know why the focus is not working as well as it normally does right now. Kind of frustrating. But anyway, this is a kind of hidden front placket here, right? So I'm hiding the buttons underneath. They're still there, but they are hidden under this placket, this fly. So what that does is it creates a very clean, minimalist look, right? That's important when you're wearing a bow tie, because all those buttons would be exposed. And that's also why in black tie affairs, you see the studs. A lot of times you'll have those kind of ivory or very elegant looking studs that will go in place of your buttons. And so it's the whole idea that because you're going to see this front section, this placket here, whether you are hiding the buttons or not, if you see the buttons, they need to be very pretty, right? They need to be very elegant, very sophisticated, and that's why you have studs. If you don't see them, like what I'm doing here, you're fine. The whole idea, because you have a bow tie, this is all open. If it was a necktie, obviously it's going to be covered different story. But because black tie affairs are predominantly going to be worn with a black bow tie, that's what we have to take into account. And then last but not least, we have French cuffs here in the dress shirt. Obviously, cufflinks are a great thing to have on any very formal dress shirt, and even more casual dress shirts. It's something that we tend to think in the United States, at least, is reserved for very fancy affairs, but not really the case. You can get away with a lot more cuff styles than you probably think. But for black tie, I think the combination of if you did have studs or not, just the whole look is so much better if you have a French cuff, aka a double cuff on your dress shirt. The last thing I'll mention, and I have it obviously tucked up under here on the mannequin, but this is a regular length, aka a full length dress shirt. So the shirt tails hang down. They're not a little shorter, as I will sometimes do on dress shirts because I will wear them untucked. But for this dress shirt, this is specifically made for my tuxedo, and therefore I wanted it to be full length with no chance whatsoever of pulling out on the sides. Which reminds me, as we're talking about details here, one more thing is the collar choice. This is a bit of a spread collar, not too much of a spread. I think you have a lot of different options, but again, this is kind of my personality to have a little bit of a spread nature here. But I wouldn't go too much more. I think when you start to show your neck, well, whether it's a necktie or a bow tie, when you can start to see more of it going around your neck. On the one hand, that's a good thing. You can show that it's not a clip-on. Oh, by the way, don't ever wear a clip-on bow tie. But if you have a spread collar, you can see more of that actual material, which might be okay. But the flip side is it's more casual, right? It's a more casual look. Remember how we're kind of covering things up that need not be seen. Same sort of thinking up here on the collar. So that's why I have that style. And then I should mention, this is a turn down collar because it's turning down, aka, well, excuse me, on the other hand, you have the turn up collar, which is kind of the wingtip or the wing collar. And that's an older look. You see that on a lot more, in my opinion, older gentlemen will tend to wear that. It's a little more kind of, honestly, I think a mid-century look. It's still, very, very works for every occasion. If you had a winged collar, you'd be totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a personal style thing. And a lot of what I do, my huge bias here is I tend to lean towards what would James Bond do. And I've written on that in the past, and I'll do an article here pretty soon about James Bond black tie attire. And he had always had a turn-down collar. Never in any of the films had any kind of winged collar. So for me, easy choice. So does that help? And the intention here is to kind of give you an overview on how I built a tuxedo dress shirt and give you some pointers as you're going out there to build your own. There are obviously many things you can do while still adhering and staying under the umbrella of black tie attire and being appropriate. But this is kind of one that I think personally is a bit of a modern and still relatively sophisticated, or excuse me, very versatile take on building a dress shirt for a black tie event. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Appreciate your attention as always. And if you've not subscribed, please do. We have a couple more episodes coming up shortly on the tuxedo I built, and you're not going to want to miss that one.